Hi everyone, welcome to Women Created and Called Live, episode 34, where I'm going to show you the first step to thriving through the holidays and beyond. I want to welcome you again and happy first week of Advent. I can't believe it's here already. My son just told me last night, what is it, like 24 days until Christmas? Maybe 23 even? I don't know that exact number, sorry about that. But I want to share with you this piece because I think that it is so important for us to take this step in order for us to really set ourselves up for success and thriving in this holiday season. So that first step, big reveal, it's to dream and communicate. Okay, I'm going to tell you so much more about that and exactly how to go about it in just a second. But first, I don't know if you have seen, I've been sharing this week on this platform and a couple of others that, my story of when I almost ruined Christmas because of our Christmas tree. And so just briefly, in case you didn't see it, basically, I had this idea in my head of what the tree should look like and even the whole experience of our family decorating the tree. And I had this idea in mind, and basically I was so caught up in doing that perfectly that my kids, my family just dispersed and they wanted no part of it. And I was left as the only one in the room and had to finish the tree by myself. It was a very lonely moment. I don't recommend it. So that was not this year because now if you could see our Christmas tree, it is currently unfinished, and even there are light bulbs out and all kinds of things. But I am perfectly okay with that because I learned from that experience that I value the relationships with my family much more than having a perfect tree. And so I have definitely learned to change my mindset about that, about the way that I approach it, and some practical things about the way that I approach the season. So these are the kinds of things that I would love to share with you. But I also want to bring up another scenario, and maybe you can relate to this one. Do you ever find that as you're getting ready for company to come over the holiday season, that you sort of get yourself into a frenzy, kind of trying to get the house ready and get all of the things done? Do you ever notice that we get a lot done, like before going on vacation, before, companies coming, different things like that? Our productivity suddenly goes way up. But the point is that we can get ourselves into this anxious and very, we can get snappy at the people that we love, for sure. And as I think about this scenario, I think of it like a plague of frenzy that just spreads through the family. And it's kind of ugly. So I don't know if you have experienced that, but I certainly have in the past. And I noticed as I got ready for Thanksgiving this year, and my in-laws came to visit for the first time, and I was so excited to have them here. It was their first time to this state and to our new home. We've been here just under a year and a half, and it was really cool. But I noticed as I looked back on it that I actually did not, even though I had a lot to do, I did not feel frenzied. And I think that I successfully saved my family from feeling that frenzy also. So let me know in the comments if you would like to know more about that. I just might go live another time and share that story a little bit more. But if you can relate to either of these stories, or you can think of other experiences that you have had over the holiday season, and you see some experiences that you would love to avoid this year, because you want to avoid them, because when you get to January and you look back on your holiday season, do you feel a whole bunch of regret? Maybe from the way that you behaved, maybe from the way that you approached different pieces of what you needed to get done. Maybe there were things that you intended to do to really experience this season, and you didn't follow through with them. And so you look back with a lot of regret. Well, I'm going to come back to that topic here in just a second. And we're going to address what you can do instead of having all of that regret when January comes around. But first, I want to let you know that if you have experienced things like this over the holiday season, first of all, you're not alone, because human moments happen, right? And all of us experience something like that at some point. Second, I want you to know that these experiences and their painful consequences can be avoided. So, and that's what I call thriving. That, to me, if I can avoid things like that, and I can actually follow through with the things that I intend to do during that season, that is thriving to me. And you get to define what thriving means to you. And that's kind of what we're talking about here today. The first step to thriving through the holiday season is getting really clear about what that means to you. I call this step dream and communicate. Okay, so here's how you go about doing that. First, you get to clarify your life priorities. And I'm talking like priorities and values. And I'm talking not all of them, but what are your top 3 to 5 things that you value most in your life? And let those values be your top priorities. And if this is the first time that you've really thought about this, and even if it hasn't, because sometimes they change over time, really give yourself a moment to think about this and write them down. Because if you have them written down and you have it in a place where you can see frequently what your priorities are, this is a powerful thing to do to help you orient your life and all the things that you do in your life toward those things that you value most. So write it down, post it up where you'll see it. It's extremely powerful to do that. So that's the first thing in how to dream and communicate and have this first step to thriving this holiday season. The second part, after you have clarified your life values, now I want you to imagine, use your imagination and think about, what is your vision for this season? What would you really love to feel and do and experience during this holiday season? What are the kinds of things that are most important to you? And then think about, okay, does this vision, and first of all, I want you to write down your vision, just as descriptive as you can. Grab a piece of notebook paper or your journal or whatever it is and write it down exactly what you picture for this holiday season. And then you're going to ask yourself, does this vision match what I value most? In that first part, when you wrote down your priorities and your values, does this vision that I have for the holiday season match those? Okay? Now, the next part, the third part, this one is extremely important and could take a little bit of courage. At least this is what I've noticed in my own experience. I've noticed that this communication piece can take some courage. But here's what you're going to do. This is where you investigate and ask. Okay, this is what you're doing in this part. And the reason is that communication is essential to create or maintain. Sometimes we just need to maintain it. Create or maintain connected relationships during the holiday season. If you're not communicating, you are not going to have a connected relationship. It's one of the 4 keys to connection that you might have heard me talk about. I teach about it all the time. So, what happens when we don't communicate? A few things that I thought of. One is that everyone does their own thing. Okay, we can, do you know the phrase? I'm sure you do. It's so common right now. You do you. And I think that most people who say that mean it in a positive way, but there is something about that phrase that kind of rubs me the wrong way. Honestly, it really does. You do you. I think because when I hear that, it makes me think of people doing their own separate things instead of being connected in relationship and doing things together. And that's the part that bugs me. Even though I'm sure that the people who say it, that's not necessarily what they had in mind, but that's just what I think of. So, one of the things that happens when we don't communicate is that everyone goes and does their own thing. Another thing that happens is resentment can fester and spread through the family. So when we have expectations and there's no communication involved, we are really setting ourselves up for disappointment and resentment. Either that could be feelings that we have when our expectations are not met, or it can be on the other side, on the receiving side, through the rest of the family. Another thing that can happen when we don't communicate is we end up just hoping to survive the season instead of thriving in this holiday season. And boy, sometimes we do see that message in media. Sometimes it's like, oh, the season is so exhausting and I'm just trying to get through and I'm just, I can't wait till January. And is that the way that you want to feel? Is that the way you want to experience this season? You want to just survive it? That's not what I want. I want to thrive. And not only me, I want my family to thrive through this season. I want us to end the season better than we were when we began. Our relationships and, as a person, I want to be better as a person at the end of this season than I was when it began. And what can happen when we're not communicating is that we can end the season more disconnected than ever. And that can happen not only in your family, but also think about it from a faith perspective. If you are just trying to survive through the season, how are you taking the opportunity to grow in faith during this very holy season of the year? We have Advent and then Christmas Eve and Christmas Day and an entire Christmas season after that. So I want to encourage you to take this step of communicating. And communication actually applies to growing in faith also. There are ways that you can use that key to connection to grow in faith. So instead of having all of these difficulties that come from not communicating during the holiday season and in your relationships, you can ask those that will be celebrating the season with you, what is most important to them? And I'm going to give you some specific questions to help facilitate that conversation. But I want to encourage you that when you have this conversation with your loved ones, write it down. And just like I said with the values and the priorities, post what you come up with together as a group. Post it somewhere that you can look at it frequently. In our kitchen, we have a calendar on the wall, and it's in a very prominent place. And so if I wanted to post something for the whole family to see, I would probably put it next to that calendar. Also, the calendar is next to the pantry door. So I could put it right on the pantry door, and lots of people go by that spot all the time. So that would work pretty well for my family. So here are the questions that you can ask your loved ones to help you really communicate. And what you're doing here is you're creating a shared vision for the holiday. You already know what your vision is, and that's a great place to start because it's important for you to know what you would like to see. And you can, of course, make suggestions then to your family. But you also need to hear what they would love to experience during the season. So the first question to ask them is just, what is most important to you this holiday season? So here you're asking, what is their top priority? What do they value during this season? Another question is, how would you like to feel? And some of these questions may sound familiar. You might have asked yourself the same when you were writing down your own vision for the season. So that one is, how would you like to feel? And then ask, what would you love to do during this season? There might be opportunities in your local area to do all kinds of fun things. And maybe there are traditions that your family has that if it were missing, something would just not feel right to that family member. So it's important to think about what are some family traditions that we have done in the past that they really loved and are important to them, but also, are there any new activities that they would love to do? So write all of this down, because then you're gonna kind of consolidate it, or I don't know if that's the right word, but the next step is together. You're going to create a bucket list. So this is where the consolidation comes in, right? The first part is just brainstorming. And then let's come up with a specific bucket list, basically. And here's a suggestion. When you make this list, sometimes bucket lists can be really cool, but then they just kind of get tossed aside. I noticed this when I thought it was really brilliant, actually. There was a real estate agent in my local area that sent out a piece of marketing that was, a card, a large card, and on one side it had her information, and on the back side, I thought this was so smart, again, it made a fall bucket list for our local area. So she was directing people to fun things that they could do during the fall season in this area. Well, that list, as I said, it got put on a refrigerator because I thought, oh, these would be kind of fun. But it got put on the refrigerator and then forgotten. So there's a step after creating this bucket list. But here's another step that you can take with your bucket list. Next to it, next to each item that you'd like to do during the season, include why. The why of why that activity is important. And see if it matches one or more of the values that you identified are important to you and your loved ones during the season. So if you put that next to the activity on your bucket list, then everybody is clear about why this is important. And that is a powerful tool to keep yourself and everybody else motivated to actually follow through. Now, there are some other things to do to help you follow through, but we're not going to cover that right now. The last thing, when you make this bucket list, make it fun. Hot chocolate, anyone? Maybe you can serve some hot chocolate to your loved ones, or maybe it's a dinner conversation, or it can be any environment that is conducive to focused conversation. And when I say focused conversation, that means that there are no screens distracting anyone. I have teenagers, and I can tell you that those screens get really sneakily. They can be very sneaky with the way that they bring it to the dinner table, or, you're trying to have a conversation and there's the screen in their hand and they get a text and, it pulls our attention away. You know what I mean? So there's one caveat to that though. Sometimes if you're having this conversation, and you choose if you want to permit this or not, right? But if you are brainstorming things to do during the holiday season, it could be helpful if one person is looking up, activities to do in your area, or, what time something is open, or what days it's available, that activity is available. So things like that, where the screen is actually serving a purpose for the conversation. That, again, you decide if that is something that would be helpful for you. So now you have this bucket list. You have, that's such a funny term, but you have your list, and you have the why it's important written next to each item. And also, one more thing, I would encourage you to not make this list too long, because the next steps as far as what you're going to do with that list to make sure that you follow through and it doesn't get tossed aside and things like that, it's important that this list is either very flexible, that nobody's really attached to it, to doing those specific activities, or it's not too long. So you're not running around and making yourself crazy trying to get everything in, because that does not feel like thriving to me anyway. So now you have this bucket list. What are you going to do with it? Well, here's your opportunity. You can join me tomorrow, Thursday, December 1st, for the Thrive Through the Holidays and Beyond virtual workshop. It's at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time. And in this workshop, I will show you how to create a no regret holiday season so that you can have more peace and less disappointment when you look back on your season and you're going forward in the new year. In this workshop, I will help you define what thriving means for you and for your loved ones. I will help you learn to be available and present for the things that matter the most to you, even with a crazy holiday schedule. And I will help you navigate emotions that might come up. Things like disappointment, or like we talked about, resentment. These different emotions that can come up when plans change and expectations are not met. All kinds of emotions can come up, including sadness too, and loneliness. So for those of you who are joining me for the workshop tomorrow, the first step that I have to the process of thriving that I have described in this episode, this is your homework for the workshop tomorrow. Now, I encourage you, if at all possible, to do this first step before you come to the workshop, if you can. But if it's not possible, come anyway, because you will still benefit so much from it. But if you are able to have that to create your vision and have that conversation with your family about what is most important to them, then you are going to have what you need to really carry forward and create the rest of your plan. Now, again, you will absolutely benefit the most by attending live, especially since I will be coaching people on their specific situations and their mindset as they approach putting their plan into action. And so I don't want you to miss out on that opportunity. It will be very valuable for you. But if you can't make it live, replay will be provided this time. I won't always do this, but this time there will be. I just know that this workshop is going to help you so much. I wanted to make sure that I could get it into the hands of as many people as possible. So that's why there will be a replay this time. I just want to let you know, God has so much more in store for you and your loved ones this season. But without some planning and some intentionality to be available and on the lookout for all the gifts that He wants to give you right now, you just might miss it. Not only will you miss the graces that He wants so much to give, but you just might end the season more disconnected from your loved ones and more disconnected from God. And that could result in looking back on the season full of regret. And I want to help you avoid that pain and thrive instead. So go to thrive.womencreatedandcalled.com and get registered before midnight tonight. Today is Wednesday, November 30th, and as I'm recording this. And so you have until the end of the day, midnight Eastern time, to get registered. Sorry, I think it's technically 11:59. And then I will see you tomorrow for the workshop and we will get to work. You are going to walk away with a plan and confidence to put it into action. And I'm so excited for you to experience this holiday season different and better than you ever have before. This could be the season that changes everything for you. When you are able to approach it differently and go about things differently, and even more importantly, you are on the lookout for God's graces in every moment of every day. And that's one of the things I'm going to teach you how to do. So that is what will change everything. So I will see you tomorrow. And until then, God bless you and all those that you love. Bye.